Hey everybody, it's David from CodeCargo. Today I want to talk to you about a riveting topic, compliance. Okay, now in all seriousness, this is a really complicated and perhaps controversial topic. In my previous job as a DevOps architect, I helped customers create compliance documents for things like pipelines and cloud deployments. Once we were done, the customer would publish their requirements and then everything was good, right? Not exactly. In reality, those compliance documents didn't really do much. Engineers had to actually interpret and understand those rules, then implement them. This never happened at scale. Some engineers certainly did it, but also most engineers couldn't even interpret the rules to begin with. Trying to make pipelines, code, and other IT assets compliant took a massive amount of engineering time away from your software engineers, platform engineers, DevOps, IT staff, support, etc. And ultimately, there was just never actually an easy way to validate compliance at scale in a way that's consumable, customizable, and accurate. That's why we built a native workflow compliance module in CodeCargo. We perform compliance checks against your GitHub's Actions workflows to determine how compliant they are against a corpus of built-in rules. You can also add your own rules to customize this as necessary. The result is a dashboard, well, like this. So right now what we're seeing here is all the different workflows that are in a project within the CodeCargo product. A project is a collection of GitHub repositories. So we're basically looking at all the workflows in a set of GitHub repositories. And right here, we can see that our platform is actually given compliance scores for every single workflow in this project. So why don't we click on one? Let's click on the CI build test workflow. It got a 77% compliance score. It's marked as complete. And this shield right here indicates that we're automatically scanning this workflow every time there's an approved PR that impacts it. When we click on it, we can see that our platform actually provided an evaluation of every single rule, and it gave a reason why it scored it as true or false. So let's look at this one. This rule states no master or main references. The point of this rule is that when you have a workflow that calls either a GitHub action or calls another reusable workflow, you don't want the version of those callable actions or workflows to be basically built on top of a branch, most commonly being like main, or if you're using more of a legacy system, master. So our platform will check that workflow and identify, is this workflow calling any actions or other workflows that reference those branch names? And we can see right here the rule failed. The priority of this rule is high. And the rationale that we gave is on lines 44, 63, and 88. The workflow actually references the main branch in a version. So this is bad because that version of the workflow can change. It's not calling a specific tag or SHA or anything like that. Basically, the code that it's calling is mutable, and that's not a good thing. We can also look at one that passed, for example, minimum GitHub token permissions. For this one, we're basically telling our platform, hey, if you're going to provide increased permissions to the workflow, you need to do it in a way that makes sense. So do it at the job level, or if you don't do it at the job level and you do it at the workflow level, well, every single job within that workflow should use every single permission that you're granting it. Otherwise, it's going to violate the principle of least privilege. So right here, we see that it passed. We can see that the workflow level permissions were set to the minimum required, and that's exactly what was used in here. So this feature is really interesting because it takes away all the challenges that the developers face when actually evaluating this. What it also does is we've spent a lot of time testing this information and testing at how it works. So for example, for this rule set, we had all the software engineers, DevOps engineers, and architects at CodeCargo, including myself, actually create a ground truth corpus of data. So we looked at a bunch of workflows, we evaluated those workflows against these rules, and then we compared the results of our evaluation function with the results of the humans. What we actually found is that our platform is actually both more accurate and more precise than the human evaluators, meaning our platform identified instances where our human evaluators have actually evaluated the rules incorrectly. And it's also more consistent. So what that means is we have 5 evaluators looking at a single rule for a workflow. our platform is actually more consistent when it comes to evaluating those rules. Humans tend to include things like, well, what's the spirit of this rule? What's the definition of this word actually mean? Whereas the LLM and all the software that we built on top of it doesn't actually do that. It's way more consistent. So that was pretty interesting for us. So this is designed for developers in this screen. So the reason being, if you're a developer and you're responsible for this code, you can go in, see these issues, and you can open up your favorite GenAI code editor. You can even up the CodeCargo expert workflow editor, and you could just implement those changes, create a PR, and bam, you're done. Your workflows are fixed. The other thing that our platform addresses is, what about that organization level information? So if we go onto the left side of the screen here, Compliance Center, we'll basically see a dashboard with all the information rolled up. So what we're doing here is we're showing what's the average compliance for every workflow in your GitHub organization. Right now for us is 91%, but we do have a few hundred workflows that are scoring below 80%, which is our thresholds. We also showed the trend of scores, so we could actually see earlier this year there was an issue where it brought most of things down to 80%, but then we remediate it. And then the last bit here on the right is, what's the real world implications of the violations that we're seeing? Are those violations going to impact SOC 2 or ISO 27001, maybe GDPR or others? So we basically wanted to show this information in a way where if you're going to look at this dashboard for 30 or 60 seconds a week, what are those key things that you want to see? So that's it for the compliance guardrails features. Thank you everybody for watching. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to us on our website. Otherwise, have a great day, and thank you very much.